Welcome to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Speir. So here, we're going to talk about gear, grit, and the kind of stories you only get around a fire. It's all about learning, adapting, and keeping your faith strong. So whether you're a seasoned outdoorsman or just looking to unplug and reconnect, you're in the right place. So pull up a chair by the fire and let's get into it. All right, welcome back to 2026. So I think last year I started back the last week of January. This year is getting close, but it's not quite as late. But anyway, welcome back to the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft Podcast. And man, let me tell you, I've had a good time over the past month, and I have really enjoyed the time off. I took a break and just really relaxed and did some reflecting and all that good stuff. So we got a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff's going on, and I got some videos in the works. And you know, the group, oh man, the Facebook group is just exploding right now. We went from the week before Christmas, it was 7,200 and something, and now it's 11,500 in just a couple of weeks. I mean, that's crazy. And if you can't tell from the video, I am actually sitting right next to the fire pit getting smoked out. And it is very smoky. It's supposed to get cold here in a little while. Right now it's a little warm. But yeah, it was a huge boost to the group. And we got a lot of folks in there. A lot of new folks, a lot of new names. We got people that's really joining into the conversation. A lot of stuff is going on. A lot of photos. I got some people getting all disgruntled and leaving, but oh well, that's what it is. It's not for everybody. And you know, if you are looking for a place to come and show your pictures and talk about primitive camping and bushcraft, come on, Primitive Camping and Bushcraft on the Facebook group, and go ahead and swing by Amazon right now. Hey, this is coming out February 3rd. The Kindle version, or the digital version, is coming out February 3rd. The Primitive Camping and Bushcraft book. And that's what this podcast is based off of. That's what the entire Primitive Camping and Bushcraft group on Facebook is based off of. So swing by, pick you up a copy while it's still on sale. And anyway, let's get into today's topic. And I figured that Dave Smith and I, if you follow us on the Primitive Camping group, you'll see Dave he's one of the moderator, mentor, or admin guys. And he and I go camping a lot. And starting last year, last year or so, we really started doing a lot of kayak camping. And year before last, actually, we did some kayak camping, went down Black Creek here in Mississippi, and we, in the middle of August, ain't that right, Dave? I think it was August, but he talked me into it against my better judgment. Now the truth comes out. No, it was hot, and it was a very hot trip. But you know what? We had a blast. We had a real good time. It was very hot, but we got to cool off in the water, and we hung some hammocks up. He had his hammock, and I had the nightcat lay flat hammock. Set it up, and it was just hot, but it was still fun. We still had a blast. And sometimes, you know, you can have a good time camping with no purpose. I mean, really, what's the purpose of going camping? Just to go relax and, you know, just recharge your batteries. And that's what we did. So this topic really came up naturally because I saw a post about it on our Primitive Camping and Bushcraft group on Facebook, where someone posted a picture of their kayak with their camping gear in the back. And it triggered something in me to go ahead and discuss something like this, because not everybody has a kayak. Not everybody has a boat. Not everybody, not everybody primitive camps the way that we primitive camp or practices bushcraft. Not everybody's the same. And that's what's the beautiful thing about this group, that we come together as a bunch of people that know that our skills are not all the same. But yet we are all meshed together, and people learn, people teach, but I saw a post on Facebook, and it really triggered something inside me to do an episode about it on the podcast. And if you're watching the video, you're seeing me sit out in a different location today. I tried to do something different with the sunlight, but when we get out into the great outdoors, how do you get to where you're going? That is the question. The thing about a kayak is that it changes how you think about access. It changes how you get to where you're going and what you're doing. Most kayaks are not powered. Now, Vibe Kayaks contacted me year before last and sent me 2 kayaks to do videos on Speir Outdoors. And I've been doing videos on them almost every month, as often as I can get out there, and trying to do a real good job for them guys to post some videos. And dude, I've had some doozies. I've had some videos that were very boring, but it turned out to be funny because of the stuff that happened. We went down the river, my brother and I. We got down the river, but the river was a little too high, and we could not get back up the river. The current was too strong, and I had a pedal drive on mine. He had a paddle on the other one. I took out the right Mako. He took out the shearwater, and we get up down to where we're going. No problem going down. It's just coming back up the river, which is the hardest part, because, man, let me tell you, that was a chore. And if you want to work out, that is a workout. We met an individual that he drug us back to the boat launch. And I think I talked about this last year whenever we were, after it happened. But, a kayak actually changes the way you're going to get to where you're going and what you're doing. You have to think it through, how you're going to do it. Most of the time, if you're going down a river or something like that, you're going to drop it off, go down the river, and then you'll be picked up down there, and then come back and get another vehicle or do whatever. And like Dave and I, when we went to Black Creek, we drove to a certain spot, left the vehicle there, and then drove 18, 20 miles up and dropped off the kayaks, and then came back down. Now, actually one trip was 18, the other trip was 8. And I think we did the 8-mile trip, but still we were taking our time fishing, and it took 2 days to do it. So we dropped the boats off. We dropped the truck off. We got all the way up there, got in the boats, and then went downstream. The water was kind of low on this trip. We had to get out. We had to drag the boats a little bit. And then we got down to a place that was good enough for a camping spot. And that is what, the real use of the kayak it really comes in, because, I have a 12-foot kayak, the shearwater, it's stable, and it cuts through the water pretty good, pretty quick. If you're lake fishing, I have the Riot kayak, which has a pedal drive, and I'm going to get into some of the other experiences I've had, but it's got the pedal drive, and you just pedal that dude around and like a bicycle on the water all day. And you got this little knob down on the right hand side. You turn left, turn right, and man, let me tell you, that thing is cool. That thing is cool. When you get out there on that water and you're just pedaling around, it is cool to be out there. And literally, it's cooler on the water than it is anywhere else. A lot of people argue with that and say, no, it's hotter on the water. But, it's cool on the water, especially towards the evening time. The sun starts going down and all the shadows start kicking in, and it is awesome. But the boat that I particularly choose is the Riot, the Mako, Riot Mako. Dude, I'm telling you, that thing is amazing. It's got enough room to haul all my gear anywhere I want. It has a pedal drive with it. And, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just, trying to describe it to you, what I use. And the extra length is pretty cool because it just cuts through. It's the same length as a flat bottom boat, like a John boat, and it's 14 feet long. It handles the wind a little bit better than the 12 footer. And it is a little bit wider. It's more stable. I don't have to worry about, I could take Ranger will jump in the water and swim, and he'd climb into the back of the boat and jump in and out as he pleases. That dog's a nut. So once you start thinking of kayaks as not toys and you start looking at them as a vehicle to get you to where you're going, it changes things. Most people, when they think kayaks, they see these videos of these extreme kayakers in Alaska, like going down waterfalls. And, I'm not that brave. I am not that brave to jump a waterfall in a kayak, and I'm not going to do it. So it's not that kind of kayaking, and I'm not on that kind of a river whenever I'm saying I'm going somewhere to go camping or primitive camping. Some people do it. I'm not that guy. I am not that guy. I'm just going to let everybody know right now, I am not it. So what we enjoy about it, and Dave and I really enjoy taking our kayaks, going down the river, and finding a spot. Now, when you're kayaking, it's a little bit different because you have to really search out a spot to camp, because depending on the river, depending on where you're at, you got your bank, which it could be steep, it could be a steady slope, it could gradually come down, and we have to really search out a spot to camp. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times we got out of the boat and we'd walk around and look and see if we could find something to camp in. And, and that was over all the trips we've been, but you still have to search it out. Now, once I do, I usually bring my GPS with me on my phone and I'll mark it. And so we go down the next time, we'll come back to the same spot and camp there, because if we like it and it's a good camping spot, why reinvent the wheel? That's the way I look at it. You ain't got to keep reinventing everything and keep going back and redoing the same old thing every time. Whenever you can find a good spot, it has plenty of firewood, has good access to the water, so you can make your drinking water, and you just go ahead and go for it. Plenty of trees to hang a hammock. So the reason I feel like that kayaks belong with a primitive camping conversation is because water is and was and always has been the original highway. You think about it, people would get on rivers and go upstream and or downstream, do whatever. So before roads, before they had vehicles, before they had trails, people moved goods by the water, and it was efficient. And dude, we built an entire country off of waterways until the railroad was built. And once the railroad was built, then it was game over for then. But it was quiet. It allowed for heavy loads to travel further in less time and with less strain. So we didn't have to use so many horses or oxen or whatever it is to haul stuff. A kayak lets you bypass obstacles, and a lot of these kind of obstacles could stop backpackers, people that's hiking, going through private land or something like that. You could still go down a waterway in a kayak, whether it's private land or public land. It doesn't matter, as long as it is navigable, you can go. And it doesn't matter the terrain, the steep terrain. Now it does in like places where you got the rapids and stuff like that, because all that is underwater terrain. You move and you can go straight to places that were beyond reach if you're walking. Now, there's a place on the Black Creek that we love to camp out close to a sandbar, and I've talked about it several times here on the podcast, that you get in your kayak, you go down, you pull up to the sandbar, and then there's an embankment, a little bit of an embankment, and you go up that, and then it's all flat, and it's all hardwood trees, and it's perfectly spaced for hammocks, and it's like, hey, you get out of your kayak, you walk up the hill, and it's like, the angels start singing, oh, there it is, Johnny. So I recently saw someone paddle across a lake, and they camped overnight. And that really made me want to talk about it here on this podcast. And so, kayaks, if you own one, if you have one, how do you load it down? Now this is not going to apply to everybody. This is a real niche item within a niche category, but the kayaks let you carry more. It lets you don't have to backpack. It's kind of like a 4-wheeler of the water, but it also forces you discipline. Now, whether you have a kayak, whether you don't have a kayak, here is the deal. You load your gear in this kayak, and it's a one-way trip to where you're going. How are you going to think about your gear? Is it going to cause you to rethink what you pack? Is it going to cause you to really deeply think about what you pack with you, what kind of gear you're going to bring? For me, it really changed my mind about my backpack. I went from a 35, 40 liter, 50 liter backpack to a waterproof bag, waterproof duffel bag. I forget the name brand of this thing, but it is just like that heavy duty rubberized canvas, I guess, that you fold over a couple of times, clip it, and then your stuff is waterproof inside there. Now, I started using that when I get onto the kayak because I don't want all my clothes. And, right now being January with us kayaking here recently, I don't want all my clothes and everything to get wet and not have a change of clothes and have some hypothermia. And so it teaches you how to really pack and consider different things that you're going to take with you to head out in the great outdoors. Hey, there it is again. Clay, I said the great outdoors. It makes him think of that movie, The Great Outdoors, every time. But he's one of our members of the Primitive Camping and Bushcraft group. So, but once you get outside, you get down to where you're going. And you're heading down that river. Are you thinking about, is the gear that I brought going to be sufficient, or did I screw up and not bring what I really needed? Now, if you've been out into the woods, it doesn't matter if you went kayaking, if you went by a 4-wheeler, if you go by a boat, or if you hike in or whatever. Most people have their gear down pat to what they're going to bring and what they're going to use. But some folks will not know, especially people that are just beginning and starting, and that's what we're all about, is the people that's beginning and starting and trying to help people and encourage them that it does not matter. You might make a wrong choice every once in a while, but there's no wrong way to do something, and just encourage them. Now, camping from a changes how you choose your site. You got to read the land from the water, and a lot of times you can't see that. And so what I was saying a while ago was stopping, getting out, going up the embankment, looking to see, and then get back in the kayak because you didn't like that one, going on down, and then going and finding something, and then it's starting to get dark, and then you're like, oh, well, I should have went back to the other one. You paddle upstream for a little while, and you're exhausted by the time you get there. So it really makes you think about how you find your camp. You're looking for clean landings. You're looking for gentle slopes. You're looking for the high ground in case it rains and the water comes up. You're looking for trees close enough for shelter, but not overhanging with dead limbs, the widowmaker thing and stuff like that. Now, that's a whole different discussion. We're going to do a whole episode on widowmakers in the future. So you're thinking about wind direction and water rise overnight. Now, a lot of times, if there's not a lot of rain or anything coming, the water ain't going to come up. But you also need to keep it in your mind, in the event that it does, how high is it going to come up? And you want to go ahead and get your camp set up normally how you normally would. Primitive camping from the water forces you to plan ahead instead of reacting. And that's a lot of people will plan their trip before they get out there. If you go out into the woods without a plan, something's wrong. You need to know at least where you're going to be, a generalized area, the weather patterns, the temperature, is it going to rain in the next 4 days that I'm going to be gone? Stuff like that. You need to know that. Now, when you're on the water, your gear really does matter. Everything's got to be secured. And this is where I was talking about that backpack. So everything's got to be able to tolerate moisture to a certain degree. And dry bags are a huge thing. You're going to need a dry bag if you're going on. I mean, you don't have to have it, but excuse me, you don't have to have it, but a dry bag really does help. And you're going to worry about your cutting tools, your fire, your shelter, your metal containers, and whatever kind of cordage or whatnot. You know, your 5 C's, I guess. But how you pack it is going to change because you don't want everything to get all soaking and drenched. Heavy items are going to stay low and centered. Fire kit and your first aid kit, if you're bringing one of those. I highly recommend bringing a first aid kit with you whenever you go out into the great outdoors. Shelter stays quick to deploy. You got to plan on the weather. You got to know about what the weather's doing. Is it going to be moving faster? And, you know, when you get out in open water, it seems like it is a magnet for bad weather or lightning. Every time I get into the water and it's like a cloud in the sky, there's going to be lightning striking somewhere. And that goes all the way back to pre-primitive camping and bushcraft days. You know, my fishing days as a teenager. Me and my buddies would get out there and we would start fishing, and boy, would it start raining. And we was just like, we're going to catch us some fish in the rain. And so sure enough, the bass would turn on and we would tear them up. And then so would the lightning turn on. And you talk about scared. Hey, nothing worse than hiding from lightning underneath a pine tree. A pine tree is nothing more than a lightning rod. So when you get out into the woods, you need to understand the weather patterns. You need to know what the weather's going to be doing while you're out there camping. Now, Dave and I get out into the woods and we set up our camp, and we've done it several times now, and it's really fun. And I've done several videos of it on Speir Outdoors. So if you haven't, check it out. But most recent when we went to Shepherd State Park right down here in South Mississippi, and that place is beautiful. They have hiking trails all over the place. They got 3 and 4 and 7 mile hiking trails all over the place down there. And then they got the waterways where you get into the water and you go all the way out to the Pascagoula River. And then, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff down there, and the place is beautifully kept. I mean, beautifully. I've been to a lot of state parks that always look like they're run down, out of budget, no money. And the state parks seem like they're always leftover afterthoughts after all the budget of the year. You know, the state parks are always afterthoughts, but not this one. This one, dude, let me tell you right now, I will be back to that one. And David's the one that recommended it, and we said, yeah, let's go, let's try it, let's see what we're going to do. You know, and we went down there, and we used a 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot pop-up shelter, like a pop-up canopy, but it had sidewalls, and it was 6 degrees, something to that effect that night. And I mean, it was pretty cold. And so we had a buddy heater inside the tent. And the only thing I didn't have was a fan to blow the heat. Heat rises, you know, but we did not freeze this time, and slept on a cot, and it was good times, man. We just sat around the fire. We ate some steaks, burned a couple of steaks on the grill, I make this little dish at home on the barbecue for my beautiful bride. And it's oysters and shrimp. and with asparagus and let's see, Parmesan cheese and a little bit of garlic butter and some mushrooms. And man, I'll cover that thing with Parmesan cheese on the top, and then I'll put the moistures and everything on there, and I'll just grill it down. Son, it was good. It was good. And we used that as a steak topper. Man, it was the triple good. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that meal. It was a real good meal. But I'm pretty sure David's going to be commenting on that because it was a pretty good meal, and it was 10 out of 10. Dave, highly recommend. But anyway, so we get down there, we set up our tent or set up the camp, and we just sit around and talking all night long, and then the next morning we got up, we had breakfast, and then we went kayaking in the canals till we got all the way out to the Pascagoula River. And the tide was out because this river is going to be tidally controlled. So the low tide, the water's down, high tide, the water's up type deal. But it was still good times. And I still learned a lot about that. And some of our other trips, by the time we get down to where we're going, the boat has either took on some water, or before I started using a dry bag, I had a bag that was a dry bag, but it punctured a hole. I tried to keep it keep it dry. It had my camera and stuff like that in there, and the camera punctured a hole in the side, and it was in a compartment, and that compartment got wet. And luckily, the camera did not get ruined, but it still would have been a possibility it could have happened. So we get to the point, and I had that precious cargo of my camera going down the river. And we're talking a Sony FX30, a decent price camera. And that's what I was using to film all the Speir Outdoors videos with. And so on the way down there, I was using the GoPro, not thinking nothing of it because, it's in a dry bag. But when I get there, that's when I realized that a hole was punctured in it. So that gives me a segue into what we're going into next, talking about how Paul in the book of Acts, he was going back to Jerusalem. He wanted to be there by the day of Pentecost, and this is in chapter 22 and 21 and end of 21, beginning of 22. And so he is going back to to Jerusalem, and he's wanting to actually get there for the day of Pentecost. But what he's carrying with him is all the tithes, all the money, all the offerings back to the church in Jerusalem. And he's showing that the Gentile churches all throughout Asia Minor or whatever it is, and they would support the church back in Jerusalem. And, this wasn't a symbolic giving. It was real resources. It was real money. It was real supplies. It was real stuff. The economic value is close to either $500,000 or $1 million. It was a bunch of silver and stuff like that. A lot of historians have recounted that, but Paul references it clearly in Romans 15. He gives instructions in 1 Corinthians 16, and he spends entire chapters in 2 Corinthians talking about the accountability and the stewardship. And when you're on your kayak and you're heading out into the great outdoors, there we are again, Clay. But when you're on your kayak and you're heading out into the great outdoors, you were stewarding, you were taking close care, very good care of all your gear on that boat. And the reason why is because you don't want it to come up disappeared. You don't want it to come up falling off. You're going to secure the load. And whenever he was transporting all this money with all this value back to Jerusalem to present it to the church, he made sure it was secured. And that's what we got to do with everything. We don't just blindly rush in and throw our stuff down and just go out, because next thing you know, if you brought an axe, it can fly overboard. And if you brought gear, it can fly overboard, stuff like that. So Paul wasn't just moving goods to prove his toughness. And that's what we don't need to do, is to prove our toughness. We can just throw stuff in the back of a kayak, head on down, and blah, blah, blah. We need to secure our stuff. We always need to make sure our stuff is secure, and we need to be good stewards of the stuff that we do have. So kayak camping teaches us to be good stewards with our gear, and how we pack our stuff, and how we look for campsites. And it teaches us how to navigate down the river or down the lake or wherever we're going to go. It teaches us differently than if you were just hiking in, or if you were just taking an ATV in, or OTV, or whatever you want to call it, and you were taking a 4-wheel drive or a jeeping in, or you're overlanding or whatever. So you don't paddle randomly. You choose your route, you balance your load, you protect your vessel, and you carry only what serves the mission. And what serves the mission for us when we're going primitive camping is all of our gear, our food, and water filters and such. Unless you don't bring water filters, you bring just regular water. So, but that's going to be heavy. Even for a kayak, that's heavy. A kayak is not about convenience. It's about purpose. A lot of people use a kayak for fun. Yeah, it's fun, but there's a purpose for it. Are you going fishing? Are you going camping? Are you going paddling? Are you going to spend time with your kids, having fun? Stuff like that. It is not. It is a tool. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, a kayak is a tool to get you to where you needed to go, and to do what you need to do. When you get out into the great outdoors in your kayak, or whatever your transportation is, or whatever you're going to do, take the time to think about your routes. Take the time to think about how you're going to get to point A to point B, what you're going to do. This was about the kayak. I had just a couple of things bullet pointed here, and the rest of it's just off the top of my head. But I really feel like kayaks are an underutilized item when it comes to camping, primitive camping at least. That it's a lot of fun. If you have a place to where you can go down through a national forest or something like that, like we do here in South Mississippi, and you get dropped off in the national forest and just kayak down the river and get picked up. Now, dude, that is fun. I'm not going to lie. It's fun. And I highly recommend it. And I'm going to be going here in a couple of months again. And I'm looking forward to actually taking the kayak and going somewhere else and doing something of that nature. But we're going to see how that works out. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this one, man. Look, head on over to Amazon. Pick up a copy of Primitive Camping and Bushcraft. You can get it at Walmart. Any of your major retailers. Any major retailer online. They even got them in the bookstores, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, all that stuff. All these major places. It's sitting on the shelf right next to Bushcraft 101. And just go ahead and pick you up a copy. Go ahead and get the Kindle version as well. And go ahead and join the group, Primitive Camping and Bushcraft on Facebook. Go ahead and join and get in there and start having a conversation with us. I'm telling you, I am firing off in the comments all the time. I get engaged with all these folks. If you leave a picture or something, I like it and comment on it, just to let you know. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed it, and happy 2026. I'll see you next time. And remember, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Thanks for sitting around the fire with me today. If this episode gave you something to think about, if it helped you feel a little bit more prepared, or it even stirred your faith a tiny bit, go ahead and share it with someone else who might need it as well. We don't go camping to run away from life. We come out here to slow down and to recharge. So grab another log, throw it on the fire, and remember this. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. I'll see you next time. God bless you.